Mylec Hockey is your leading provider in ball hockey equipment and proud sponsor of the National Ball Hockey League. Mylec has been around for 50 plus years, pioneering the sport of off-ice hockey, creating the iconic orange ball, which is the most used and recognized ball around the world. Mylec's deck mat is a great at-home training tool to simulate the feel of the rink. Easily put together, Mylec's deck mat will allow you to stick handle, shoot, and train off the rink to keep your skills sharp. It can be used on tar, cement, tile, basically any flat surface you can find in and around your home. If you would like to purchase some deck mat for yourself, please contact Mylec for more information on how to order. To check out all the other products that Mylec has to offer, head over to Mylec.com and use promo code Commish Chat at checkout for 15% off. Once again, that's COMMISHCHAT at checkout for 15% off.
Welcome back to Commish Chat, the official National Ball Hockey League podcast. I am NBHL Commissioner Anthony Sanrocco, joined by co-founders TJ Janus and Gianni Sanrocco as we take you through all the happenings of the NBHL. We had 13 divisions play 2 weekends ago. We had 14 divisions play last week. We have 12 divisions coming up this weekend, so a lot to talk about. Gianni and TJ, how we doing?
We are doing excellent. I actually beat Gianni's team, I guess your team too, this week. So I think I don't know, I just have bragging rights, I guess, for this week.
Yeah, doing not excellent for the same reason. Tortugas fell. We'll get to that later.
Yeah, it is what it is. Yeah.
I had no contribution. I had no contribution on the score sheet, but we won. So
yeah, you had a sick play in the third period where you had a wide open shot in the low slot and passed it into the corner, which was awesome.
I'm very unselfish.
But yeah, so we have 2 weekends of games to cover. 2 weekends ago, where we, like I said, we had 13 divisions play. This past weekend, we had 14 divisions play. We were scheduled for 18, but all the games in the state of Massachusetts got canceled because of they had storms, ton of rain. So Mass Women's, Mass Tier 1, Mass Tier 2, and New England Division did not have games this weekend. So start off, we'll go right to Tier 1, go to New Jersey Tier 1, where all of us play. And we'll start off with the Top Guns. Top Guns, first place. They've played the most games, but they've won 4 out of the 5 of them. They beat the Hawks. They beat the Caribou. They're young kids. They're fast. And the thing is, they're not even bringing full rosters to every game. They've only had about 10 people, 9 people at every single game. So amazing start and only going to get better from here, I think. They've really made a name for themselves very quickly.
Yeah, they're just super impressive. I mean, they're all young, they're long, they're like strong. They're all, I mean, way bigger than me, but that's not saying much. And like, they know how to play the game. Like, I can tell that they are coached well and they like move the ball well and like all the things that a good hockey team has, they definitely have. So it's been a big surprise and it's like exciting to watch for sure.
Yeah, I love watching that team. I think I've been telling people around here, you see they're so young and you look at them and you're like, how are they keeping up with us? And from what I've seen is they know how to play the game really well. And I think it's because they're one of the first generations around here that has grown up playing 100% on deck for most of their playing career. So they've grown up with this game. They haven't had to, adopt to the deck like some of the older players did as they, got into these more advanced facilities. So they've had that years of experience since they were young, and it's really showing out well here.
Yeah, and I mean, they beat the Hawks this past weekend. They beat the Hawks. It was overtime, right?
Yeah, every game went to overtime besides Tortugas and Caribou, which was also another just crazy thing to see and cool thing to see because, again, it was just super competitive and low-scoring games.
Yeah, I mean, the Hawks came into the weekend 2-0, hadn't lost, and they drew Night's Watch and Top Guns and went to overtime both games, lost both games. So, they dropped to second place. They're still up there, but I think if you were to ask the Hawks, they would probably like a redo on those games. I think they expect to win at least one of them. So, I mean, Night's Watch, they had 2 games. They took the Dogs to OT, lost to them. They beat the Hawks in OT. And the Night's Watch Dogs game was probably I don't know. I mean, I can't say game of the weekend in Jersey Tier 1 because all the games were really good, but the way that they won that game was outrageous because they're down 3-1 with less than 5 minutes left in the third period. And Zach Andes, coming off a suspension, scores 2 goals in the third period to tie it up 3-3. They go to OT. They give him the start in 3-3 overtime. And his brother Mike and Aaron Hoffnagel are controlling the ball. They hit Zach at the blue line, and he just rips one for the win. Launches his stick, launches his helmet, goes absolutely nuts. Just a crazy return from suspension for him, and it was the atmosphere was outrageous for that. It was crazy.
People were going
that
nuts.
celebration, that was electric. That celebration, everyone was going nuts on the crowd. You could hear the video people going nuts. It's crazy.
There was like laughs, cheers, like it was actually insane to watch. And I mean, we went up to him after the game, and I was like, dude, that was what a way to come back. And yeah, I'm sure you guys all saw the clip on Instagram this week. So electric.
Yeah, shout out Tommy Palumbo for getting that footage for us. That was great. And speaking of him, Palumbo, Caribou, you guys had a rough start. 3 games, you only had 2 goals, and you finally broke out against us. Gianni was nice enough to let you put 5 in on him, or 4. Was it 4 or 5?
Whoa,
It was
only
4.
4. 1 was an empty netter, okay?
Whatever. But
True.
yeah, Caribou needed that. Got some very, very needed
Hopefully
goals.
that breaks the seal. Yeah, I don't know. We'll see.
And last team I wanted to touch up on in New Jersey was from 2 weeks ago. The Mutants debuted. They had 2 games. They took the Mavericks into overtime, lost to them 2-1, and they lost to your team, the Caribou, only 1-0. So they looked a lot better this year than they did last year. So it's really good to see an improved full roster Mutants team, and Jersey Tier 1 just up and down, just competitive. Everybody's close. Moving on here to Pittsburgh Tier 1. So we have opening weekend and the second weekend of Pittsburgh Tier 1 to cover. Opening weekend started off with a Showstoppers Imperium rematch of the Tier 1 finals from last year. And the Showstoppers came out as hot as they could possibly come out, and they beat them 7-3. The Showstoppers beat the back-to-back Mylec Cup champions by putting up 7 goals. It's the most goals allowed in a Tier 1 game this season. Yeah, we've had like 20-plus games, and that's the most goals let up. So it's crazy. So Showstoppers, they come out, they beat them. Their second game, they play against the Warbirds. They're up 4-1 going into the third period. Warbirds score 3 to tie it 4-4. Showstoppers score again. Warbirds score again. So it's 5-5 going into OT, and the Warbirds win it. So they have a 3-goal comeback in the third period. Kind of like the Leafs last night, actually.
Yeah, dude, I actually turned that game off thinking that it was over. And then I saw this morning that they lost, and I was like, what?
Yeah, that was crazy. So the Warbirds, I don't know if you want to get compared to the Leafs yet, but
Yeah.
I don't know. That's kind of what happened. So then we go into week 2. Warbirds play the Pioneers, and they beat them. So they won both their games against Pioneers, Showstoppers, which, I mean, it doesn't really matter who you compare them to in Pittsburgh. All 5 of those teams are really good. So you win 2 games, it's going to look impressive no matter what. But for a team that finished in, played in the play-in game last year, this is a really big turnaround. They got younger. They got faster. They have a stud goalie in that, in Pat Bell. So they're a great team. They look awesome.
Yeah, I mean, I've seen them around the tournament circuit a little bit. They've been, having a lot of their guys playing these men's A tournaments, and they've been looking really good. And, we were sitting there watching them play up at the North Americans tournament in Pottstown, and thought to myself, if these guys are the same ones they're going to have for NBHL, they're going to be in good shape. And it looks like it's true.
And then, that whole division still, like Imperium, they got their first win this week. Battalion, they're kind of struggling right now. They're 0-3, but they're a really strong team. They're going to get it together. They're going to win some games. Pioneers are 1-1. So, just like New Jersey, Pittsburgh Tier 1, smaller division, 5 teams as opposed to Jersey's 8, but all 5 are competitive, and it's very, very close. But Warbirds are a, great story. And, I don't want to downplay the Showstoppers being in first place. They're awesome too. But that Warbirds comeback was, it's one of the games of the season so far. It was pretty amazing. Now, moving on here to Massachusetts. Week 2 got rained out, but opening weekend, the Classics had a doubleheader. They went 0-2. Rough start for them. They played the Terriers, who made their debut. They beat them. They looked pretty good. Owls had a five goals in their win over the Classics. And the Owls are sporting new jerseys this year. They went with like a North Stars-esque green jersey color scheme, and they looked cool. They looked really, really cool. They came out great. So those were, a couple rough games for the Classics. And then the best game in that division, the tightest game, was the Seabass. Central Mass Seabass, runners up back in 2021, went to a shootout versus the Leominster Stars, the new team to the division. Seabass wore their black jerseys. They looked pretty sharp. And in the shootout, Zach Markey, MVG from Mass Tier 1 last year, had some pretty slick saves, and they won. Big game. I think it was a 3-2 shootout win. But Blackhawks, defending champs, have not played yet. Did their schedule a little differently in Mass than we do most divisions, where we have games on Sundays and Mondays, and the Blackhawks have a lot of Monday games. So we won't see them until the weekend of May 7th, where we'll have our live stream in Massachusetts, which I cannot wait to see. But, again, Al's pretty dominant win. Great division. I mean, we'll see what happens. We'll see how it unfolds, but we've had 4 different teams from that division come to the Mylec Cup in both years. So we'll see if that trend continues or not.
Yeah, I mean, we keep saying it about these tier 1s, but, there might be some wins that are a little more lopsided than others, but in general, especially in Mass, any of these teams going into the games can come out with a win. Going against the MVG in that shootout, you score one more goal in one more round, you're coming out with a win. So every single weekend is a battle.
Moving on to the women's tiers here. In Pitt Women's, we've had 2 weekends of play so far. The Riddlers and the Mad Hatters are both undefeated. The Snipes, the defending champs, and the Malevolents are both 0-2. So this weekend coming up, we've got the Riddlers playing the Mad Hatters, and we've got the Snipes playing the Malevolents. So one team will get their first loss, and one team will get their first win. So we'll see what happens. The Malevolents, they only have 1 goal right now. They got to get some offense going, but overall, the scores are close. I don't think there's been any blowouts in that division. So, we'll see how that unfolds, but the draft looks pretty even across the board in Pitt Women's.
Yeah, and it's early in the season still for these women's tiers too. They are still getting to know each other, a lot of these teammates. So what the scores might be in the beginning of the season might not be the same at the end.
Then New Jersey Philly Women's. After week 1, the Marlton Cavalry are on top. They had 2 big wins. They beat the Genos and the Bobcats. It was in our top plays last week, but Jasmine Martinez on their team had a really awesome diving goal to win it for the Cavalry in a shootout. It was probably the 6th or 7th round of that shootout. And that Cavalry team has some field hockey players and new to ball hockey, women's players that looked really, really good, that adjusted very well, very fast. The defending champions, the Deck Queens, they went 1-1. They lost to the Bobcats. They beat the Bell Ballers. The Genos, they beat the Bell Ballers too. So, the same story rings true as we've been talking about essentially this entire podcast so far, is that, teams are at the top of the standings, teams are at the bottom of the standings, but there's no blowouts. The games were close, and these teams all drafted pretty well and pretty evenly. So Cavalry on top, but it's pretty wide open, I'd say, in Jersey, Philly tier and women's tier.
Yeah, and I mean, I know you were up there for most of their games, and I heard that a bunch of the new players in the women's tier are, actually thriving, and it was just nice to hear that, new players to ball hockey were having fun, enjoying it, and are actually good at the game. So, more to come and more growth from the women's tiers is, obviously what we want. And, it was just good to hear that.
And staying on track with how even the women's tiers are, DC Women's is another level of that. All 4 teams are 1-1. It took me, 10 minutes to figure out the goal differentials so I can sort them correctly in the standings for our graphics this week. So, 1-1. The Feral Foxes, and I'm going to go through these team names because they're all crazy on their own. The Feral Foxes have a +1 goal differential. Bunny Bandits have a +1 goal differential. The Lady Bing Blossoms are -2, and the DC Divas are even. So, anyone's game. Great job with the draft, as always. They were like this last year in DC Women's, just even across the board. But, I mean, it's a competitive division. Everybody's 1-1. So, another one that we'll see what happens.
Yeah, I mean, it doesn't get much tighter than having to separate them by goal differential. And I think that's a testament to, how balanced the draft is. It's year 2 of all these divisions doing a draft for their women's players, and the captains are getting to know the players a little more. They're kind of figuring out how to, work the draft system, and everyone seems to be coming out, relatively even across the board from what I can tell, across all the women's tiers.
So we'll move on here to tier 2. We'll start in beautiful California to a revamped tier 2 division. It looks very strong. We only saw the Southern California teams play. The Bay Area Bashers did not play yet, but the San Diego Sauce got way better, had a great offseason, picked up, I think, a lot of they have a league in San Diego, and I think they really were able to pick up all the talent that they have down there, and they looked good. They had a tough loss to the Wolves in a shootout, I believe, and, they won their other game. They beat the Bruins, and, the Bruins and Royals, Bruins, the new team run by Chet Johnson, the Los Angeles Royals back for their third straight season. They both were pretty shorthanded. The Royals went 0-2. The Bruins ended up winning the game. But all four of those teams looked good. Skill levels up as usual and had some players move around. But overall, it's going to be close up there. But the Wolves, after week one, are still the top dog in Southern California. Got to see what the Northern California Bashers come down and do. But for right now, the Wolves are on the top of that division.
Yeah, I was just looking at the stats, and I see some of the familiar names on the Wolves: Scott Shin, Ali Shepard. So yeah, I mean, they still have high caliber offensive players. I wasn't sure if they had left yet or not, but yeah, just had to mention that the Sauce have like this one of the sickest logos in the league, probably. So definitely want to get that on a shirt or hat or something.
Eventually, or merch stores coming eventually. Everyone, for people asking too, it's on its way. Moving on here to Chicago Tier 2. Chicago Snipers, 3-0. First place. They got wins over the Rats, the Raiders, and the Kings. The Rats game that they won was a come-from-behind win. They had 2 goals in the last 45 seconds to come back from being down a goal to win it. And they're probably one of the youngest teams in the entire NBHL. They're fast. They're motivated. They've got great leadership. So they're looking really, really good. And even this past weekend, the Rats have a lot of the guys and girls from the Chicago Southsiders. They're an awesome team. They're going to continue to be one of the best teams in Chicago. They got a win this week over the Stingrays. It was a close game in a shootout. And I think it's Larissa Cernas. I hope I'm saying that name right. I think she had the goal in regulation and the game winner in the shootout, which is amazing. I mean, good for her. I know she was player of the week. The Rats social media game is, as we've said before, is pretty top notch. They had some great memes that, and I don't understand how to do memes, but I think
I saw like 5 more this week, and I didn't even like look at them because like they've just been pumping them out at this point.
Yeah, they do some pretty good stuff on their social media page. So even if TJ's not looking at them, please keep putting them out. We love them.
I glance and move on because there's a lot.
Even that, like the Raiders are having kind of an uncharacteristic start to their season. They've been the runner-up in that division the past 2 years. Right now, they're 1-2. Both of their losses are 1-goal losses, though. It's not like they're getting blown out. They're having close games. And the Belmont Height Kings, they got their first win this past weekend over the Electric, who are having a rough go. New team, been mercy at all 3 games. So only can go up from there. So we'll see if they can turn it around as the season progresses. Moving on here to Florida Tier 2. The Tampa Bay Thunder, they look like the team to beat down there right now. They went 3-0 in opening weekend. We had a matchup of them versus the Orlando Mutiny, which they're the 2 teams that returned from Florida Division last year. The defending champs, the Atlanta Dirty Birds, did not come back. But we had the Thunder, Mutiny, big rivalry game, and the Thunder were up 2-0 going into the third period. Mutiny battled back, tied it up 2-2, and then the Thunder with 12 seconds left found a guy backdoor for a tap in, and pretty awesome win, pretty awesome celly, and I'm sure that was they got some bragging rights because they don't play for a little bit, so they got a little while for that loss to sink in with the Mutiny. So great win by the Thunder, and the three other teams, the Daytona Ducks, the Lakewood Ranch Manatees, and the South Florida Superior, all traded wins. They all won at least a game. They all had some pretty close games with each other and with the Thunder and Mutiny. So the Thunder, obviously 3-0 in first place, team to beat, but the rest of the division looks good. We've got a lot of new players playing for the first time that are adjusting, so big adjustment period to start off. But Florida division looks good, and they'll play again, I think in mid-May is their next weekend of games.
Yeah, I mean, I've been hearing some buzz about that Florida division up here in New Jersey. There's a couple of guys that are well known around the Jersey area who are playing on that Orlando Mutiny team, and when the guys around here saw that roster, they saw it and figured, okay, that's going to be the top team in Florida. And then they come out and the Thunder take them down. And, I've heard a little bit of buzz and saying, oh, this Florida division's legit. They got some good talent down there. And it's not exactly a traditional ball hockey market, but, the guys down there know how to play.
Yeah, speaking of untraditional ball hockey markets, we sent some New Jersey refs down there. I saw Mike Zambon and Willie Augustine go down, and they did a little, seemed like live training and ref some games for the Florida division. And I don't know, it was cool. I saw Toasty posted a picture of it, and I don't know, it just shows some growth of the game there and, teaching people how to ref and things like that. So thought that was really cool.
Yeah, they ref 9 games. I think they refed 5. They took a little gap break for a half hour, and then they refed the last 4. So respect to those guys. Love that they're willing to do it, and
yeah,
it's great for the Florida division too to have experienced refs like that going down there and controlling those games. It's a great thing to see. So Mass Tier 2 not opening game. I think the second game of the day was the A-Town Tropics matching up against the defending champion Mill City Warriors in a championship rematch. A-Town Tropics won 4-1. Caleb Cox had a hat trick, all-time goal. I think it's been all over our social media for the past week and a half now. I think at the time of this recording, we're at 23,000 views on Instagram, which is like the second most viewed video we've ever had. But Tropics, man, they looked awesome in that game. They had just so much energy. They're a young team. They're just passionate, and I think they got some revenge they were looking for. Malden Maulers, they made their debut. They beat the Warriors too. So the Warriors went 0-2 from first place to now in last place in opening week. Crazy, difference a year makes. The Flamingos, they debuted. They beat the Wildcats. The Vengeance, they debuted and they beat the Wolverines. Norsemen, they debuted and they beat the Thunder Ducks. So these new teams, the Vengeance, the Flamingos, the Maulers, the Norsemen, all new to the division, came in and won their opening game. So a lot, there's some teams that left. It's a lot of players shuffling around from teams that had left the league and came back in. There's new players coming in. We have an additional team that we didn't have last year. So it's good to see those new teams come in, immediately be very competitive and win some games against some established NBHL teams.
Yeah, I mean, it's nice to see the shift, of course, and not only this division, but I think, several others that we have talked about and ones we're going to get to. But yeah, some new teams coming in, winning games, some teams that have performed really well in previous years now, not, like the Warriors not getting a win in their first, weekend of games. So you're seeing a shift across the league, new teams, new players, and maybe some guys phasing out.
Yeah, especially in Massachusetts too. That's a hotbed for ball hockey. So there's a lot of talent around there that might not have been playing in the NBHL last year, but I'm sure they saw all their friends playing and, they get a whole off season to prepare. And so they take that time, they do it well, and they come, with their first action ready to go. And they come out with the wins because of it.
And staying in Massachusetts, going to New England Tier 2. The Mass Minutemen, which is a rebranded look of the South Shore Shamrocks to some extent. They brought in some new players, have a lot of players in that roster. They went 2-0 to start. They beat the Terror. They beat the Goats and looked really strong. The Goats had 2 really tough losses. They lost to the Minutemen 6-4, so a tight game, high-scoring game. Then they played the defending champ South Coast Chargers, lost to them in a shootout. So 2 losses, 2 close losses, so it's, not anything to really hang your head over. And then the defending champs, the South Coast Chargers, they went 2-0. They won that shootout game versus the Goats, and they also beat the Blue Devils 4-1. And lastly, but certainly not least, the Tri-State Terror. They had a rough opening weekend. They had a lot of roster changes this offseason, and they went 0-2. So will improve for them. They're a good team. They just had a rough opening weekend. These teams now, the 4 teams that won games in New England, were together last year. And I know the Terror had a lot of changes. So they'll adjust, they'll improve, but New England Tier 2 looking strong as ever.
Damn, we should have made a graphic for the Battle of South Coast with 2 different spellings between the Chargers and Blue Devils.
Oh, we should have done that.
It's missed opportunity. Sorry.
Next time.
Yeah, maybe someone on the Chargers or Blue Devils, if they hear this, can chime in, because I forget which way it is, but one of them is South Coast with no space between South and Coast.
That's the Blue Devils, yeah.
Okay, and the other one is South space coast.
Yeah, Chargers.
Just causes me headaches. Now, North Jersey Tier 2, Long Island ball hockey team, they won the battle of their state, beating the Long Island Sound, the new team, 5-0. The Sound, though, they came out really strong. I know the first couple minutes, they really took it to them. Long Island ball hockey team had to take a timeout just to kind of reset, and then they kind of poured it on after that. And, I mean, they went up 5-0, but I was told that the game, the score didn't tell the full story and that the Long Island Sound looked really, really good. And then Long Island ball hockey team, they played back-to-backs. Their next game was against the North Jersey Hired Guns, who completely revamped their roster, have a lot of huge changes, and they beat Long Island in a shootout. And that was Long Island's first ever loss in a regular season game in that North Jersey division. So huge, huge start for the Hired Guns. But the even bigger story was the Red Bulls, the Clifton Red Bulls. They went 2-0. They beat the Hudson Saints, who had one loss last year in the regular season, and it was to Long Island. So Red Bulls went 2-0. They beat them. They beat the Saints. They beat the Titans. And they picked up some new players that are really good. Their leading scorer right now, his name's Ethan Alter, young kid, and you watch the highlights and he just stands out. You can tell he's super, super talented. So it's a player we're happy to have in the league, and it's nice to see the skill level amping up in North Jersey too.
Yeah, I was just looking at the North Jersey stat leaders, and it's Ethan Alter and Jason Alter, assuming they're brothers. And they are 7 and 5 points, and that's, I mean, in 2 games played is actually ridiculous. So great start for the Bulls.
So Pittsburgh Tier 2, opening game was Militia versus Bantams, and Militia picking up right where they left off. Beat the Bantams 5-4 in OT. Pretty much an OT thriller. Awesome game. Week 2, they won again. So Militia right now, they're 3-0. The Bantams, they lost that opening week game to the Militia, but then they come back to week 2. They beat the Demigods. They beat the Warlocks. So now they're 2-1. And Militia, Bantams, right where they left off last year, 1 and 2 seeds, and right at the top of the standings. And similar to Mass Tier 2, the new teams are playing really, really well. The Apocalypse, the Blitz, the Revenge, all 3 teams are 2-0. They're all in the top 5 of the standings, with the returning teams like the Nighthawks, the Warlocks, the Rebels, the Bandits, they're all 0-2. So similar story, a lot of shuffling players, added some teams, so we got some new players in, but again, it's seeing the new teams come in and beat these established teams and, show that the skill level's kind of all over the place there.
Yeah, I think it's the same story as that, Mass, where, again, Pittsburgh's another ball hockey hotbed, and there's a lot of players that are coming out of the woodwork and saying, all right, this NBHL, let's put our own team and do our own thing, and they're doing it right.
So South Jersey Tier 2, we've had, 200 games in the past 2 weekends, it feels like, from...
That's what it feels like, yeah.
All those teams and all those games. But week 2, we had 8 games. The losing teams in those games had 2 total goals. We had 4 blowouts. We had 3 tighter games. The tightest game was the Jays. They won in overtime versus the Knights, who were in first place at that time. The Storm, they went 2-0. They got some big wins. But that week 2 was just a lot of blowouts, pretty lopsided games. We go into week 3. The Storm start off with a huge win over the Chiefs in overtime. Huge. So the Storm go from losing opening week to now in first place. All right, no, I'm sorry. They're in second place. The Jays are in first place because of their goal differential. But the Storm, have really rebounded very well. Chiefs with a tough loss. They were off a little bit. They didn't look as, fast as they usually do, but they'll bounce back. I don't know what those guys do, but somehow they always figure it out, and they'll end up being fine. The Marlton Hounds, they got a much needed first win. They beat the Knights, and they were 0-3 going into this weekend. And there's 14 teams, 10 of them make the playoffs, but going 0-4 is it's tough to come back from, even with that many teams making playoffs. So they needed that win, and they got it.
Correct me if I'm wrong. That was their first win in franchise history, right?
The Hounds.
The Hounds?
I think they won, or I think I was talking to some of the guys. They either won 1 game last year and went on a 13-game losing streak. Or
I think that's what it is that they were on a big losing streak, and they finally broke it.
I think it was I think they said 13 straight, which is ridiculous. But glad to see the Hounds get a dub.
Wait, it had to be like 9 straight. It couldn't.
I was
have
gonna say,
been
there's no
13.
way this 13. They didn't even make the playoffs. So
Yeah. But Space Pirates, they won second week in a row. They beat the Sloss 6-2. The Sloss won their second game of the day, but I know the Sloss aren't happy with how they started this season. I've heard some rumblings that Captain Ryan Pavlik might bench himself for his poor play. We'll see. We'll see. That's just what I've heard through the grapevine. I don't know if that's true or not, but they the Space Pirates, they lost their opening week to the Chiefs, so they've had two big wins. I think they have 14 goals in the last 2 games, so I think they had 5 the first ones. They got 19 through 3. They're averaging over 6 goals a game. Pretty wild, but they're bouncing back. They look better. Majestic also look really good. I thought they'd be a high caliber offense. They have a lot of offensive firepower, but they haven't scored a ton of goals. But their goalie, Jimmy Burkett, looks awesome in that. He's been a brick wall. He is a extremely high level goalie. He's awesome. So that Majestic team looks very, very strong. And then the Jays have won their last 3 games. The Jays lost their opening week game, and now they've beaten the Horsemen, they've beaten the Knights, they've beaten the Psychos, scored a ton of goals in the process, and now are at the top of the standings. So if you look at the graphic we put out for South Jersey Tier 2, I think almost every team has an up arrow or a down arrow moving somewhere because it's been chaotic. I think it'll start to stabilize as these weeks progress a little bit over the next few, but teams are kind of bouncing all over the place, which is, again, what we want to see.
The Jays are another one of those teams where they have some pretty good social media game. I don't know if anyone saw, they have a player of the game chain that they pop on the guides. It's all decked out with, I don't know, it looks like jewels or something on there. Yeah, it's blinged out for sure, but they give it out to the guys after every game. We love seeing it on social media.
yeah, and I just wanted to say something about like Tier 2 as a whole in South Jersey. Like, there's no like clear like top team. I feel like right now. I mean, you kind of just said it, Ant, but like, I don't know. I don't know. My radar's going, and I like can't tell who's the best team. Like Majestic, Jays, Storm, Chiefs, like any of those teams could end up being number 1, and we just don't know who it's going to be at right now, and we'll have to see how the season plays out.
And last division we'll cover here in Tier 2 is Washington, D.C. The defending champions Sparks have now lost 2 games in a row. They lost to the Hayes and the Gladiators. They've only scored 3 goals in both those games after having 6 in opening week. I know they've been experimenting with moving some players around to positions they don't usually play, and I think I've been told that experiment is now over. They are going to go back to how they did things last year and try to get back to winning some games. So Sparks sitting in the 4th spot. I don't know if they've ever been that far down in the standings in the NBHL, but they've got a little bit of work to do, but plenty of time to make up for it with losses to the Hayes and Gladiators. And the Hayes, they're in 1st place. They have 3 wins right now. Last season, all season, they had 3 regulation wins. They had 5 total, but they had 3 regulation wins, and they already have that this year. So the rebrand with the logo was a huge success because, I don't know, they're in 1st place. It's great. And following that, Gladiators are another team that they're in 2nd place right now. They beat the Sparks, they beat the Phantoms, they beat the Phoenix. They've got a big battle this upcoming weekend versus the 3rd place Plague. That'll be, and I can't wait to watch that game and see how that game unfolds. But Gladiators are another team they've been really, really strong this season to start. Them and the Hayes they're 1-2. They deserve to be there. The Plague, they're sitting in 3rd place. They've got back-to-back wins. They lost to the Hayes their opening week. They beat the Phantoms and Phoenix these past 2 weeks. So, Gladiators game is big for them. It's a statement game, one that I think they probably they really need to win. So, DC, seeing teams at the top that we haven't seen at the top in the past, and competitive as ever. So, a lot of skill down there in DC.
Yeah, I think we saw from week 1 in DC, it was the Sean Miller shootout goal where he kicked it off his foot back to his stick and just scored in the shootout, which was ridiculous because you don't see that in ball hockey ever. And I feel like it's way easier to do on ice. So just got to tip it to Sean Miller.
Moving into Tier 3 here, we had 4 Tier 3 divisions kick off this past weekend. Starting in Maryland, the Savage Ogopogos, top 3 name in the league, scored 9 goals in 2 games. They started off 2-0, 1st place out there. The Bethesda Blazers, they went 1-1. And the Hedgehogs, they went 0-2. So only a 3-team division, new division, new representation at the Mylec Cup. So we'll see what happens. And those Hedgehogs are in last place, but they're another team that's got a great social media presence. I don't think I knew that you could own a hedgehog as a pet, but one of their guys he's always, I guess it's whoever runs their team, is always sending us pictures of his hedgehog. And I mean, obviously that's the inspiration behind the name, but it's just awesome. Like, I've seen more pictures of a hedgehog in the past month than I ever have in my life.
We got to start talking about maybe picking up a turtle for the Tukes.
Yeah, that would be smart. Probably a little less convenient of a pet, but we can make it work.
Yeah, no, it's just early in Maryland Tier 3. I feel like there's not much to, say about it quite yet, just because I don't know, me or you guys know a ton about the players yet, but I'm excited to see more come from it and, learn more about the division as the year goes on. And I'm sure we'll have some staples sooner or later.
Yeah, I mean, it's 3 new teams and they did kind of a draft format, so it's a lot of players playing together for the first time. So that'll be one that, they'll improve, get more chemistry as they go. So we'll see how that kind of pans out. Moving back to my former home division, Pacific Northwest Tier 3. This is probably the strongest this division has ever been. All 4 teams. So we condensed from 6 teams to 4 in Pacific Northwest. But the 4 teams they have are very good, very close in skill level. There was, I want to say, 8 games this weekend, maybe 9. And there was only really one blowout. The Cold Snacks had a 9-1 win over the SaberCats, but beyond that, like, the Cold Snacks aren't even in first place. They've won back-to-back championships, but right now, the Portland Golden Eagles, they went 4-0 and beat the Cold Snacks twice. So it's, tides may be shifting over there. I don't know, Cold Snacks.
Maybe they're getting a little karma for not showing up to the Mylec Cup. Who knows?
Ooh. I would agree. But, the Snacks, I know that they had a little bit of a debacle with the Kraken having a playoff game the Saturday night that they played. So I think there's some guys up in the air on
priorities.
playing NBHL versus seeing some historic Kraken games. But nonetheless, the Snacks are awesome. They'll continue winning games. And the Burnside Bears, and the SaberCats, they only had 1 win each, but the Burnside Bears, they had a 1-goal loss to the Golden Eagles. They had a 1-goal loss to the Cold Snacks. The SaberCats, they beat the Bears, who, had tight games with those teams. So they're close. They're close out there. And again, we'll see. We will see. But it was a great opening weekend, and they're tournament style, so they won't play again for a good month or so. But yeah, I'm sure they'll might hopefully be some practices in between, and learn from opening week out there. But some great hockey. So moving on here to California Tier 3, the Las Vegas Shiners returned, came over from Nevada, and went 3-0. Had 3 shutouts, outscored their opponents 14-0, and I mean, they looked awesome. They picked up right where they needed to.
And we posted earlier in the week, we saw the Shiners had an absolutely filthy goal against the Swell. Their former goalie, now playing out, Devin Shiro, gets a pass in the slot and does a spinorama through the slot between the legs, roofs it past the goalie. Absolutely disgusting.
It was nasty.
Yeah, that was crazy. That'll easily
make the cut.
Yeah, that's going to be a top 3 play of the week without a doubt at all. So, I mean, this weekend in Cali Tier 3 was just the SoCal teams and the Vegas teams. The Bay Area Burger Boys, the defending champions, were not down in SoCal this weekend. But the Shiners, they went 3-0. The only California versus California matchup was the Rush versus the Fighting Goats, and the Rush got their first ever Tier 3 win with a 7-4 high-scoring game over the Huntington Beach Fighting Goats. So, Shiners looking good. I know the Burger Boys are looking good. They amped up their roster, but we'll see what happens when they come down next month. Last Tier 3 to go over here is Philadelphia Tier 3. The defending champs, the Pottstown Mud Dogs, are no longer in the division, so it's about as wide open as it can be. And I mean, team-wise, there's only really one team that's returning in name is the Philadelphia Berserkers. There's a few teams that have kind of rebranded to different team names, But the only true returning Philly 3 team in name is the Berserkers. The Jersey Shore Sharks from South Jersey Tier 2 now play in that division. And 8 other teams, 10-team divisions, one of our biggest. The South Philly Moonshiners are based out of the PPE League in Philadelphia. They went 3-0, had a great start to the season. At the top of the standings, the Phoenixville Jokers, who have a few players from the Pottstown Mud Dogs, and the Delco Devils, another team that was, up in the mix last year and, making the push for the Mylec Cup in Philly Tier 3. Both of those teams got 2 wins. So Philly Tier 3, another division, 10 teams, very deep. And, a lot of hockey to be played still.
And that division featured what I think is one of our longest ever shootouts. And the Moonshiners taken down in 16 rounds. The shootout took between both teams. Moonshiners took down the
Jersey Shore
Sharks. Yeah, so coming over from Jersey, and Moonshiners came out on top, and they stay atop of the division.
All right, and that's our weekend summary from, I guess, the past 2 weekends of play. We've got 12 divisions going this weekend coming up. Like I said before, we got Buffalo Tier 1 starting up, Buff Tier 2, and we've got Indiana making their first ever NBHL appearance. So we're excited to see what they bring to the table. We'll have the live stream. Joey Delgado and the Memory to Video team will be hanging out in Buffalo to get the Tier 1 matchups and then a Tier 2 rematch of their finals between the Buffalo Wear It and the Queen City Ronin. So going to be some really good games. They'll start at 2 o'clock out there. And next, we'll kick it to Ed Botelho, one of the main pieces of the South Coast Chargers Mylec Cup Championship Tier 2 winning team. And we'll talk about their path to the championship.
Are you guys ready to get bucked up? If you're looking for something to give you the energy, focus, and endurance you need to conquer your next game or workout, then Bucked Up is for you. Bucked Up just released a new line of endurance products perfect for NBHL players. And let me just mention a few. Go all out with Bucked Up's new full bore product, which focuses on blood flow and bringing more oxygen to the lungs and muscles. It also has other innovative clinical ingredients which will give you the stamina and power to push through the pain in practice, during workouts, and in games. Bucked Up's long range contains a proper balance of carbohydrates and sodium to refuel your body during your exercise. And Bucked Up IV will restore the fluids and electrolytes that you sweat out during games. Also, be sure to check out Bucked Up's #1 best-selling pre-workout products to help take your training sessions to the next level. Head to buckedup.com and use promo code NBHL20 to get 20% off your next order. Once again, that's promo code NBHL20.
We are excited to welcome to the Commish Chat Podcast, Ed Botelho. Ed's the 2021 New England Division Most Valuable Defenseman, 2022 New England Division Most Valuable Player, and Most Valuable Forward. He won First Team All-Division both years, and he's a member of the 2022 Tier 2 Mylec Cup Champion South Coast Chargers. Eddie, welcome to the podcast.
Thanks, Anthony.
So before we get into the Charger stuff and, everything that's happened more recently, we'll go right back to the beginning and say, where'd you play growing up? Where'd you start playing ball hockey? Was it like an ice hockey transition? How did you get to playing, to this day, ball hockey?
Yeah, so I started playing ball hockey at PAL in Fall River, Mass. My father, my uncles, my grandmother actually coached in this organization for like 20, 30 years prior to me playing, and then it kind of folded a little bit after. But that's where a lot of the people from Fall River and, South Coast area play a little bit of ball hockey. So that's where I started, and then I transitioned over to ice hockey around 7, 8 years old, and then I combined a little ball hockey and ice hockey, and then that's it. Basically been playing ever since. So
go back to 2021 here. We're getting started with the NBHL. We announced New England, and I remember talking to Eddie Costa, and for those who are listening and might not know, he's the division director for New England, and the conversation is, what tier we put New England in? And he's like, we're kind of in between. We can do Tier 1, we can do Tier 2, and ultimately we decided let's go Tier 1 to start, and then we can adjust as needed in the future. We get 5 teams to start. You end up on the Iron Stags, and, how was the reception to the NBHL, and then how did that Iron Stags team form and you get on that squad?
Yeah, I think the first year was interesting. Iron Stags were pretty stacked. We were a really good team. We didn't really I think there was 1 or 2 other teams that had close games with us. It wasn't a very competitive year, and I think, the rankings were trying to figure itself out in the first year. And then the second year was obviously way more competitive, and there was more teams in the mix. But I think for the Stags, we were we were a pretty good team. We've played as the Rhode Island Rage together, so we were familiar with some of the things that we brought to that team. It was a good group of guys. We had a lot of fun. But again, the league was not tier one caliber hockey. It was basically one team that played tier one caliber hockey. And then when we went to actually the Mylec Cup, we didn't really even compete. Well, we competed, but it was not a very winning recipe. So, I mean, I think the first year it was kind of like, we were finding the league and the NBHL was kind of finding where New England stood. And I think we're in a good place now, tier two. I think there's more competitive hockey. It's separated with the salary caps and things like that. So I think it found its way.
Getting back to that first year, you guys go 10-0, pretty dominant 10-0. I think every time we posted the stat graphics, like the top 5 scorers were your team. Maybe once in a while someone else would slip in that 5 slot, but you guys pretty much had it covered. I know Ricky Moran had an unreal season. And, you win the first round. You get to the finals versus the Scrappers, who were the team that I think gave you the biggest challenge throughout the year.
Yes.
And they beat you in game 1. It's your first loss of the year. What happened?
Yeah. I think we underestimated them, right? I think we went there. We were having fun. It was a summer night. It was hot. It was, and actually I remember that game. We were missing actually our top 2 centers. They ended up coming late. And they just beat us. No excuses. They just beat us. And then game 2 was the same night, I'm pretty sure.
Yep.
And then it moved over to the next Sunday for game 3. And game 2, we said, all right, guys, well, we just got our butts kicked by underestimating them. So let's outrun them because that's kind of our game. And we have skill. We had skill, right? The Iron Stags had skill, but we were more – let's out effort people, outrun people. Very similar to the South Coast Chargers, by the way. That's what we pride our game on. But and then game 2 and 3, it wasn't obviously competitive. 6-1, 7-0. Eddie Costa was ready to kill all of us. Love him to death. But no, it was fun. It was fun.
So you guys, handle your business. Games 2 and 3, going into the Mylec Cup. What's the expectations going into that? Are you thinking, we're going to win this? Is it, what's the thought process?
It was definitely compete. We lost one game out of 13, out of, I'd say 14, 15 games. I don't know how many games we played in the playoffs, but we had lost that one game to the Scrappers. So we thought we were definitely going to go there and compete. And we did, right? We lost the first game 1-0. And we said, okay, we're all right. And then we kind of just, I don't know if it was got tired or what it was, but I don't think I think we went into it as a 6th seed and it didn't go well. So,
I mean, you had some big wins there because you guys beat the Pioneers, beat them 5-2, right?
That's right. So it was so I was absolutely wrong there. So my apologies. So we ended up losing to the Dogs twice.
Yep.
Okay.
Yep.
Yeah. No. Listen. So we thought we were gonna compete, but I mean, there was teams who ended up winning that year.
The Penn Hills Imperium.
Yeah, that's right. They went twice in a row. Yeah.
Yep.
But yeah, I think our goalie stood on his head too for some of those games too, if I remember correctly. We had a good goalie. We were short on D though, so I'm not a defenseman. And that year I played D. So then when we went into and we played teams like the Dogs, it was a different type of game than what we were used to in New England. So trust me, the talent that we seen at the Mylec Cup was not the talent that we were used to seeing in New England. So
yeah, makes sense. I mean, and so you get eliminated by the Dogs on Sunday, which was a good game. It was 2-2 in the 3rd period.
Yep.
I mean,
yep.
You guys played them well. They ended up, I think Dennis Hickey scored, made it 3-2, and they beat you.
Yeah, one thing about the Stags was those guys were really tight. So you had guys like Goodnow and Carlton and Johnny, and they're obviously on, I believe, the Minute Maid team now. But we've all played together for a while again with the Rage, and so there was definitely cohesiveness on the rink. That was not the problem. The problem was I think we were missing a few guys, if I remember correctly, too. One guy showed up late. And then I believe one of our better players showed up on the Sunday. So it was like we were kind of scrambling around. We didn't have we weren't really used to playing. I think Evan Souza, which was our first line centerman, showed up on Sunday. He wasn't there Saturday, so then the lines kind of got mixed up. And as we were finding momentum late on Saturday, things kind of changed on Sunday, and it is what it is, Bob.
So we dropped to a tier 2. We had those 7 teams in 2022, and then you end up on the Chargers. So how did the South Coast Chargers, like, how did they form? You know, what's the team dynamic like? And I know from just looking at the roster and seeing you guys at the Mylec Cup, it's a mix of, you know, vets, young kids. Like, it's kind of all over the map. So, you know, how does a team like that come together?
Eddie Costa. So he was obviously a defenseman. He kind of organized the team with a lot of his younger guys that he's coached. And he brought on a lot of veteran guys. And we meshed very well. And we outworked teams, and we had some of the best players at every position, in my opinion. And our coach Tony did a good job forming power plays and PKs, and we were very successful on special teams and things like that. So definitely Eddie Costa with a little help of Tony. Yeah, absolutely.
Interesting. And you know, we just spoke about the Lobsters a little bit, but
yeah,
for me as you know, someone who's not up there, like, I see that all of you played together on the Stags, you've played together on the Rage. Then I'm seeing comments on social media like crazy. I'm seeing, you know, it seems like a very real rivalry. So, like, you know,
it is real.
Where did this come from? Because I at first thought it was like just joking around, and then as the comments got more serious, I was like, oh, this is not a joke. These guys really don't like each other. So
no, it's a rivalry that we all love, which is why I'm very upset that when I take a look at the schedule that we have here, Lobsters are not on it, because I actually really enjoy playing those guys, and they're a good team, right? So I do not discredit them. They have a good team. They have a lot of good goal scorers. I don't think they can compete with us speed-wise, and I think that's why we were very dominant. I think we won 4 of our 5 games against them last year. I'm pretty sure. And I think just our younger guys like Drake and Evan Barboza and all those guys, just Johnny Pacheco and Frank, I think they just outran those guys. And us older veterans kind of just moved the ball and gave them to the younger guys. And, you know, we put the net when we needed to, put the ball in the net when we needed to. And but it is definitely real. And again, I am going to miss them on the schedule this year. I really enjoy playing against those guys.
Yeah, because of course, you know, you guys finish in first place. They get the 2 seed.
Yeah. Yep.
You end up meeting in the finals, and kind of a similar thing to the Iron Stags. You lose the first game.
Yeah, they beat us the first game. Yeah. Oh, they were confident as all hell after winning that first game. You know, they outplayed us. Another team that just outplayed us. You know, whether we I don't think we disrespected them. I think they just controlled the game a little bit. And we said, you know, I think after the first game, we basically said, guys, there's no reason these guys should be controlling the ball. And we, I think, just stepped up. And like I said, we're younger than those guys. I think we're a deeper team as well. So towards game 2, we just outran them, and they really game 2 was pretty dominant with ball possession. So yeah, and that's it. Went to game 3, and then we took care of business to go to the Mylec Cup. So
how's it feel? Does it feel different for you coming to the Mylec Cup in 2022 versus coming in 2021? Like, is the expectation a little higher?
Well, I think the thing is guys from the Iron Stags, right? We were always competing against Tier 1 competition. So we went to the Mylec Cup and we seen Tier 1, and guys like me and Evan Souza, and we all played in that tier. And now we're playing Tier 2. So it definitely did feel different. I didn't like that feeling. I want to compete in Tier 1. But again, Tier 2, there was great competition in Tier 2. So, you know, and I think, yeah, we definitely had the expectation of winning the Mylec Cup. Yes.
So on Saturday, you guys go 3-0. You beat Night's Watch 8-1. You beat Space Pirates 8-5. You beat the Ronin 5-2. You scored 21 goals in 3 games.
Yeah, and we didn't even think that we played good hockey that day. I remember that. We did not think that we played good hockey. I think the 8-1 game was we played good hockey, and then the 8-5 game, our defensive in zone responsibilities were not very good. So, and I remember actually leaving game 3 and we're like, yeah, we went 3-0, but we didn't play good. We didn't play to our level of expectation. So yeah, I just remember feeling that way.
I mean, if you feel that way and get the number 1 seed, it's got to,
yeah.
it can't all be bad.
Yeah, we were excited. Yeah, we were excited.
So in the way the Mylec Cup worked last year was there was 15 teams in Tier 2. So only the number 1 seed got a bye. Everybody else had to play, essentially, it was, I guess, a playing game. Like, it was right before the quarterfinals. So they would have to play 4 games. So you had a 3-game path to the finals.
Wow, I didn't know that.
Yeah, so you draw the Maryland Sparks the first game, beat them 2-1. Really, really tight game.
It was a tight game. It was, yeah.
That Sparks team's a good team. They're really, really good. And then you get
they were physical, right? Weren't they a bigger team, physical team, I believe, right? Or was that the Militia? There was a physical team that we played on Sunday.
Both. I think the Militia game got a little chippy. That was your semifinal game.
Yep.
Yeah.
Excuse me. Yeah, that game got a little chippy with our goalie and in front of the net. Yeah.
So that one you guys won 4-2. So you're now 5-0 at this point, going into the final.
Yeah.
And you're playing the Chiefs, and you'd already beaten the Space Pirates, who beat the Chiefs in the Jersey Tier 1 final. So you're going into this Mylec Cup final. I mean, are you guys making any changes? Is it, now we're playing better hockey? It's Sunday. We're just going to keep rolling with what we're doing.
I actually think the Chiefs turned it on Sunday. So
yeah,
the way we seen the Chiefs on Saturday was not the same Chief team that we seen on Sunday. And we kind of knew that we were going to play the Chiefs. Like, when we seen the semifinals roster, we kind of knew, hey, if we make it through Militia, we're probably going to see the Chiefs, and that's going to be a good game. So, and it was. They dominated us with possession. I mean, we remember being in the bench, and we're like, all right, guys, we're not playing good hockey, but we got to just keep the ball wide and work the D and work it down low, cycle down, no cycles high. And it was a tough game, but we squeaked a few goals out, and I don't know how we won that game. I'll tell you how we won that game: Brandon Silva. So without him, we don't win that game. And without Johnny Pacheco, because he was phenomenal as well. But
we get down to the last minute of the game. You guys are down 1-0, and what happens?
I remember RD just saying, "Guys, we need help. Their forwards are on us. We need help." So we had to kind of, give him closer support. And it was like, all right, guys, come on, let's try to break. We couldn't even break the ball out in the first 2 periods. And in the third period, we started to put it on them. And then their goalie started playing well. And it was like, all right, guys, come on, just keep pushing.
So there's a minute left in the game. You guys call a timeout. You're down 1-0. What's said in that timeout? Like, what's the plan?
So at that point, we started to turn it on. We started to tilt the rink a little bit, and we were pressing them. So we just said, get in front of the net and shoot. Get in front of the net and shoot. Don't let them see it. And I think it was a goal right off the faceoff. I think Evan Souza won it, and I just put it on net before the ball even touched the ground, and it went in. I don't really remember if somebody was screaming, but it just went in, and then Johnny finished it in overtime. So
tell us about that overtime goal, because that was, from a pure skill standpoint, that was one of the best goals we saw all season. Like, it was unbelievable.
Johnny is known for his hustle ability, right, and his effort, and but the kid's got a little skill. The kid's got a lot of skill. So he made a few people look silly and just sniped it, and that was probably one of our sexier goals of the season. So, yeah, no doubt about it. And the way he celebrated, and it was just fun. It was fun. It was fun to go back and watch and be like, wow, that was pretty special,
Yeah, I think he slid from like the top of the circle all the way to the other blue line on his shin pads.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, he's going to have to get a new pair of shin pads, yeah.
Yeah, that was one of our all-time sellies of the year. It was awesome. Now, you guys win. Do you, like I said, your team's got a pretty mixed dynamic, and I talked to Mark Bergamasco from the Imperium, and like they went to the bar. They're going to bars and drinking. I feel like you guys couldn't really do that. You got too many kids that are young.
We couldn't do that. So we all had to work in the morning. So we all had to get the hell back to Rhode Island or Mass or wherever we came from. So Yeah, we basically, it was a late night because we had, I think, the last game on that Sunday, and we had a 5-6 hour drive home. So that's how we kind of celebrated. But it was a hell of a time.
So for this year, what's the expectation? Do you have any predictions? Any,
Nah, win the first game, man.
take
Win
it
the
game by
first game.
game?
I think we play the goats. Yeah, we don't know what lines are, right? So we're losing a lot of those guys, and our lines are going to be a little bit different. Nobody really knows what lines are until your first practice or game, but that definitely, it's important. It's important to know who your lines are and how they play, and so you hope to get that halfway through the season so you guys can mesh. But that's kind of the goal, man. Just play hockey. We know that we can get there, so we just got to play our hockey. And if we don't, we'll get beat, and if we do, I'm confident. So
Ed, thanks for coming on. I really appreciate it. And
Yeah.
good luck this season. And
yeah, you as well, man. Good luck.
Thank you. And
Yep.
we'll talk soon.
Thanks, Anthony.
Yep, thanks, Ed. And that was Ed Botelho, the South Coast Chargers, defending Tier 2 champs. Thanks, Ed, for coming on. Great little interview. And good luck to the Chargers this season. We'll see how they do.
And now we're going to move on to the Hockey Militia Ask of the Week, our weekly segment where we ask a question and you guys answer on Instagram and Facebook. And we answer as well. The question this week was, what has been the biggest surprise / upset this season? You guys want to take it first?
Yeah, I'll go. I'll say my biggest surprise so far this previous week of games was the strong showing out of the Mutants. I know we had mentioned it earlier, but they had some struggles in Tier 1 previously, but they came out with a full squad, and they're looking like a legit threat here in New Jersey Tier 1.
Yeah, they look really good. We said it before, but say it again. They look great. So it's tough to say they look great after losing 2 games, but compared to what the kind of season they had last year, it's night and day.
Yeah, I mean, the one game was a shootout loss, and the other one, I mean, they took the Caribou, who are, a top team in all of Tier 1, to a 1-0 game. That's, that's the sign of a good team right there.
For me, I'll say, there's tons of upsets this week. But for me personally, I guess experiencing the games in New Jersey, I think it's, not really a surprise, I guess, but it's just been fascinating for me how many people have come out to watch those games week after week. It's just cool seeing the boards packed, everyone watching into the games and we're there from, 2 to 10 every game all day. There's people that come out to watch. So the support of the league and the people that are interested in the league is just, it's been really cool to see.
Yeah, for me, I think we've seen it in a few different divisions this year, but just kind of surprised how much they're shifting, like the standings are, and some of these teams that we've seen that have been really good aren't just winning games, easily anymore. And, like, for example, the Top Guns are a brand new team beating the Caribou and, taking all these other teams to, close games. And we only have 3 points in 3 games. Like, who would have thought? So I think it's just cool to see the shift.
Yeah, even like we said, like DC, like the Gladiators and Hayes at the top of the standings.
Right.
It's just refreshing to see that the teams that haven't been leading those divisions in the past are catching up, if not surpassing, some of those teams that have won in prior seasons. It's everyone's just getting better collectively,
Right.
which is what we wanted to see.
All right, and now for some of the answers that we got from you guys on Facebook and Instagram, Anthony Garver said he's upset that Buffalo division doesn't start for 2 weeks.
We're upset too. We love the Buffalo division. Those guys are awesome and super passionate about it. But it's even earlier than last year, though. This is the earliest Buffalo's ever started.
Yeah, I was going to say they were pretty late last year. It's probably like mid-May. I don't know.
So at least it's not May this year. At least it's in April still.
Next one was from Fazil Khan. He said he's upset that the Columbus Counts didn't win the logo challenge. I think we might have mentioned that when we touched on that on one of the previous episodes, but yeah, that's definitely a sick logo that kind of got snubbed.
Well, they went to the top 4. They were up there. They had a pretty good tournament. They put on a show for us, but can't win them all. But a great showing from a first-year team.
Isaiah Medina said the Warriors starting 0-2 in Mass Tier 2 after going to the Mylec Cup. Hopefully the boys turn it around. He's talking about the Mill City Warriors. Yeah, I think we talked about that earlier too, but
Very surprising. You have to imagine that team's gonna, step it up as the weeks progress. So tough start, slow start, but they got 8 more games to, make up for that. So We'll see what they do.
Yeah, we've seen that a couple of times. All the returning champs here, not all of them are coming out and winning their first games. There's some early season adversity for these returning champs. They got a target on their back going to the Mylec Cup, and everyone wants to take them down.
Our next one's from Matt Altamere. He said he's loving the parity in the Pittsburgh division. Showstoppers commandingly take down the back-to-back champs and then lose to the Warbirds in a crazy comeback. Yeah, I mean, we already talked about that, but that was a surprise for sure. I mean, I looked at the scores when I got home Sunday night, and I was like, what?
Pretty crazy. But, I mean, we obviously, again, we touched on that before, but the parity is good. It's what we want to see. And we want every team going into every game think they can win. So that's, hit one look promising.
Now onto the Q&A segment, where each week we post a story on our Instagram on the main NBHL account and the Commish Chat account, where we ask you guys to submit questions, and each week we're going to answer them, and we'll pick a few. So the first question's from the Iron City Blitz, and they ask, are all games recorded? Can we watch games on YouTube? And also the Steel City Revenge also asked, when will games be posted on YouTube? So figured I'd just kick this one to you, Gianni.
Yeah, I can definitely take this one for sure. So, all of you that are at the games, you'll notice in either the bleachers, somewhere elevated, or in between the benches, there'll be someone with a tablet. They're recording all the games. They get sent back to NBHL HQ here. We have our wonderful team of video editors. Shout out to them. We edit all the games into highlights, and we also post full game footage. You can find the full game footage and the highlights. They're both posted on YouTube on Saturdays. And then if you head over to thenbhl.com and head over to the box score for each individual game, we'll post it there as well. So 2 different viewing options. Both are through YouTube. If you're watching on YouTube, make sure you like, make sure you comment, make sure you subscribe, and share with your friends.
Next question came from DC Street Hockey, and they were asking, what is the oldest and youngest players in each tier? And I guess, Ant, you might have dug these numbers up.
Yeah, the youngest we have in the league this year is 15. We have a handful of 15-year-olds across the league. And then going through our tiers, I'm not going to name names just because, I don't know, people probably don't want their name mentioned, but tier 1, oldest player is 55. Women's tier, oldest player is 60. Tier 2, oldest player is 65. And the winner, the oldest player in the NBHL, is 68 years old. 68.
Wow.
Impressive.
Love that.
Am I going to be playing ball hockey in 40 years? That's crazy. That's amazing. So
That is amazing.
to be 68 and still be able to play a sport competitively is incredible. So, I mean, good for everybody who's, at an older age that's playing in this league, but 68 is just crazy in a good way.
And Mike Davis asked, can you use your timeout to get a line change on an icing?
No.
Absolutely not.
I know this came up in our game, Caribou game. Also, like if they shot the ball out behind the blue line and you can't change on that. People were asking if we called a timeout, can we make a change? And it was no. You literally just can't make a change after an icing or a play like that. So no.
You can call a timeout, you can get some rest, but same 5 got to go back on the rink.
Exactly. And the next question was from Mikey Liberty. He said, how does the call-up rule from Tier 2 to Tier 1 work? And I think, Ant, you would best answer this one.
Sure. Yeah, so we have the affiliate squad rule this year. It's a new rule we added to this league that allows players to play up in a different tier, play in a tier they don't usually play in, or even for teams to bring players in that aren't actually on the roster. The rules are all outlined on our general rules, which is on our website under resources. But a quick summary is basically if a team has less than 10 players, meaning 2 full lines and a goalie, they can bring players onto their team from either a tier below them or a free agent, provided they, register with insurance, get the USA Ball Hockey and sign a waiver and all that sort of thing. And they can play games for your team. But it's only if your roster is short, and we need a 24-hour notice prior to your games in order to do that so that we can verify the player, make sure that they registered with USA Ball Hockey, make sure they sign the waiver, add them to the website. There's a bunch of things. So it can't be a game day decision. We need to have some advance notice of it. But in certain circumstances, with your roster being short, you can have players who are not on your roster typically play for them. And again, if you want to figure it out in detail, it's all explained in our general rules on our website.
And that'll wrap up this episode of the Commish Chat Podcast. Make sure you follow us on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, and YouTube. on all 3 platforms. This is where this is being posted. And also make sure you're checking out our website, reading all the articles. There's some good roundups from around the league that people are writing. You get a real good dose of what's going on around the league. And also on the website, you can subscribe to our newsletter. We've been sending out some weekly emails with some of those recaps and other news around the league. So make sure you do that. And I think one other thing on there is we have the Bucked Up Ambassador Program. So if you like to work out, if you're an athlete, anything like that, and you want to help represent Bucked Up in the NBHL, check out our newsletter because there's information in there, or just reach out to us and we could put you in the right direction. But I think that's all we have for today.
That's all I got.
Yeah,
Yep.
absolutely. Thanks everyone for listening.
Yep. Thanks, everybody.
Peace.